Oh, boy, that is a big one. Big one. 34-31? Yeah, 34-31 in overtime. One of the wilder, more entertaining football games, to be frankly, I've ever seen, certainly inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, and in my opinion, the best home victory in the Frank Reich era. Chris Presley across the way, he was in the building yesterday. Kevin Bowen across the way as well. Man, Thanksgiving gonna taste good in the Reich household, in the Ballard household, the Irsay household. We know that with Jimmy popping on the Zoom yesterday. But, man, what a wild game. Crazy finish, overtime, 6 turnovers in the game.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers doing Aaron Rodgers things. Julian Blackmon doing Julian Blackmon things. But terrific win, man, and that was fun to watch.
I mean, like you said, I was there. I was fortunate enough to be there. It had a little bit of everything. I mean, good special teams plays, good offensive plays, good defensive plays. You know, you're seeing Michael Pittman Jr. finally getting his first touchdown. You're seeing good play out of Julian Blackmon and the rest of the defense. The maniac being the maniac and the guy that we all expected, and the Colts defense showing up like they wanted to when they mentioned in training camp how they wanted so many turnovers in ball games.
Yeah, a little bit of everything, I think, is a good way to put it. We'll hit on a lot today. Probably the most Twitter questions I've had after a win this season. So Wednesday's pod, since they're playing the Titans again, we can hit a lot of those on Wednesday. So I try to keep some of the bigger picture stuff maybe to Wednesday. We'll still hit on a few of those today, but we'll get into things I like, things I didn't like. But before we jump into that, Chris, we talked last week about this was such a great measuring stick game because it was a different sort of barometer. It was this passing offense juggernaut that Green Bay is, and no one on the schedule comes close to replicating that. No one. So, like I was saying on Wednesday, what you're going to face Sunday here in 6 days, that game means more for standings.
Correct.
But what you just did 24 hours ago means more to me and what I think this team can do in January, because you withstood punches from the best passing offense you'll see all season. You punched back, and then the fourth quarter, the final few minutes, while there was some just abomination of game management, you ended up making more plays than they did. And I think that gives you a jolt. I think that gives you confidence. I think it can do a lot for this team. Last year at this time, they were slowly wilting. Miami, Houston on Thursday night, Tennessee at home. It's over. Now it's Tennessee on a short week, beating Green Bay, emergence of some rookies.
Yep.
Now it seems like this team is ascending, and that's what you want to be. I mean, flat out, obviously, it goes without saying. You want to be an ascending football team at this point of the year. And I just love how the Colts finally, after the game, they embraced, like, this game meant more. Why is Jim Irsay talking? Why is Frank Reich saying what he said after the game? Phillip Rivers, like, they know this meant more. And, yeah, they all count the same in the standings, but this one resonates big time. And I thought it was important just to be in a pressure-packed game. Feel that pressure. Feel that energy. And how do you thrive in those situations? And for the most part, the Colts made the necessary play. Obviously played a great second half for a second straight week, man. So this team has shown me that they can win in multiple ways. They didn't do that enough last season, but every unit stepped up, certainly yesterday, but every unit has played the lead role in a victory this season.
Correct.
And for teams to have that, that's what's going to last in January. Think back to the Super Bowl team. Defense just getting blitzed late that season. And then they show up in January.
Yep.
And now you win a game 15-6 against Baltimore. Then you come back next week and you win a shootout at home against the Patriots. You got to be able to beat teams and win games in multiple ways. So, yeah, resiliency, toughness, adjustments, all of it showed up, man. And, yeah, great win. Great win.
And obviously a huge player for that Colts victory against the Patriots, Marlon Jackson. He was in the building yesterday. They kind of honored some of the guys from previous teams. And one of the people that I wanted to quickly touch on before we jump into what you liked, we had mentioned how Rock needed to step up. Other than the late pass interference call where it was kind of 50-50 with the hand placement, big interception. I think it's really good for his confidence moving forward.
The interception was outstanding. That was one of the better plays you'll see from a cornerback. Did a little bit of jam of Devontae Adams, I think it was, at the line, and then quickly got into that zone look. And, boy, what a great play on the ball to make that interception. I haven't fully watched the TV copy listening to audio yet, but it sounded like Aikman thought that Rodgers made the right read. Like, felt like there was an opportunity to make a play in that zone. And Rock's closing speed is outstanding. He still is a worry to me, Chris. There's a reason Aaron Rodgers targeted him so much throughout that game, and pretty much just was like, Devontae Adams was perfect until that last target of the game. But there's a reason teams are going after Rock. So right now, corner depth and offensive tackle depth, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But yeah, that was life as a corner yesterday for Rock. It was a roller coaster. It's been a roller coaster a bit for him this season. And I guess lastly, what I'll mention before we get into things I like, I don't know if I made this reference on Wednesday's podcast, but beating teams in different ways, and I love college basketball so much, I'll reference it in a Big Ten sense. Can you win a meat grinder in Madison at the Colts Center when the game's in the 50s? And then can you come back 5 days later and play at home against Iowa and win a shootout with Iowa that won't play a lick of defense in a game in the 80s, something like that? That's all about being a diverse team through the course of a 16-game season, and we're starting to see the Colts do that.
Yeah.
And again, that's what gives me – I mean, honestly, unless you just flat out lose to the Titans and Raiders, it's going to be very difficult to miss the playoffs.
Right.
And now we'll talk about that more Wednesday. I mean, Sunday is monumental for division and all of that. But as I look at the AFC right now, I see Kansas City and Pittsburgh still on a tier. But when we talk about the second tier, I think the Colts are atop that tier.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't have said that 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I confidently say that right now. And job well done to Frank Reich, Chris Ballard, and so many players that we'll talk about for getting that done.
All right, well, let's jump into things that you like. Obviously, the big one that stands out, the way that the Colts played in that second half.
Boy, man, 2 weeks in a row, right?
Yeah.
What a third quarter. What a third quarter. You caught a that is a pass interference penalty on Rocky Scene late in the first half. I know some people didn't like that call, but unfortunately Rock has gotten a stigma that he's grabby. So officials are going to look for that, and when you're in that much open space like that, they're going to call you for it. So you didn't have the momentum going into half like you did on Thursday night against Tennessee. Remember, you got that late field goal then, 17-13. But yet you came out in the second half, and that 3-and-out, just massive. You get down 3 scores, and now you're out of phase. You keep within 2 scores, you're still in phase. And that's me talking, I think. And honestly, I think Frank Reich would agree with that. But you go down 3 scores, and it's probably up-tempo, full throttle offense. Basically, you aren't running it as much as you did. But yet you were able to pound it in that third quarter. And why is that so key? Because that's Green Bay's weakness defensively.
Yes.
They're not a good run defense team. And I thought it was the best we've seen Jonathan Taylor look. Carried a heavy load there. 14-play drive there to start the third quarter. That was over 7 minutes. Now, you ended it with a field goal, which wasn't great. But yet your defense comes back, gets you another 3-and-out, which is remarkable. And then a 10-play drive, which you capped with that touchdown there to cut it to 3, got the 2-point conversion. And now it's game freaking on.
Yeah. Game
freaking on from there. You had the huge strip by Cassius Marsh, who was dressing over Ben Banigou on the kick coverage unit, which is a play that I don't know if has gotten enough credit. But to me, that was probably the play of the game. Again, when you talk about game flow and all that. Because what we talked about on Wednesday, man, was where can you steal a possession? And Green Bay gifted you that first turnover. Rodgers too quick out from center, but you didn't take advantage of those. So you still need to just find another possession somewhere. We saw Tennessee do it yesterday. Beautiful fake punt with the backup Woodside in that game there. So that's where I'm getting at of where can you just get that extra one. You aren't going to be able to run it for 60 minutes like you did against Kansas City last year. You got to find that extra possession. Cassius Marsh on the strip. And man, our guy, Rigoberto continues to be a magician. You know, I don't know what the technical term, but just a higher pooch-ish kickoffs, forcing Green Bay to return it.
Right.
And they won field position, and then a beautiful punt to execute there late in the game when your offense looked like, you know, St. Elizabeth Seton. I don't even know if they have a football team, but the third grade team trying to close out that football game there. So, yeah, man, second half of football. You know, we talk about big halves all the time. Thursday night against Tennessee was the biggest half of the season up to that point. And take punches and punch back. You know, you were one. I'm a huge believer. Green Bay scores in that first drive. The game's over. The game is over. You go down 3 scores, especially 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. If
Green Bay would have scored there and pushed that lead to 21, man. So complimentary football in the second half. And I thought what was huge was the time of possession discrepancy wasn't as massive as I thought. Maybe it was still notable, but you ran 84 offensive plays.
Right.
That was big as well. And just Rodgers on the sideline. That's the recipe to try and beat that football team.
Absolutely. Next thing we want to mention, the rookies. I mean, you look at what Pittman Jr. was able to do, Julian Blackmon, like I mentioned early in the intro, Blankenship with the game-winning field goal, Damian Harris going in motion, forcing that defense to kind of look around and actually, you know, give him some attention. We're getting some great play out of some young guys, and that's one of those games, you know, like when you're a freshman or sophomore and they're like, oh, this is, you know, he's playing like this level of or this year, even though he's only this year. I think that's like kind of your measuring stick or your barometer with those rookies. I'm not saying they're second-year players yet, but you're seeing a lot of good play come from them.
Yeah, I forgot about the Harris reverse, you know, in that first half. That was executed so well. Julian Blackmon looks like a 10-year pro.
Right.
Just flat out. You know, I know the other guys have had their ups and downs, but Blackmon, he just flat out stud. And I guess I will start there, Chris. And it's something that I wrote afterwards on 1075thefan.com. And I pretty much singled out the 4 main ones of Taylor, Pittman, Blackmon, and then Hot Rod hitting the game winner. But the play that Blackmon makes in overtime, it's one of the better defensive individual plays I've seen considering the moment.
Yeah.
This is a free safety that is getting dirty, getting up to the line of scrimmage, anticipates the screen. Like, there's so many levels to that play. First off, the recognition of that's been a go-to play a lot for the Packers in that game. Equinemius St. Brown, great player at Notre Dame, ran that play earlier in the game. And, you know, his recognition by Blackmon is the first thing. His ability to blow up that double team is incredible. Like, if he just blows up that double team, it makes a tackle for loss there. It's 3rd and 3, and it is an outstanding play on the perimeter.
Yep.
Because you don't, and maybe the Malik Hooker role usage / you know, to be frank, Malik Hooker's lack of playmaking in that area of the field, maybe that skews our mind a little bit, but we are not used, and I honestly say this from an NFL sense, we're not used to many free safeties making those plays.
Yeah.
But that's Blackmon's corner instincts coming into play there, and just does a beautiful job splitting that double team, and then the strip of not settling for just a tackle for loss. No. I see a loose ball carrier, and I'm going to try and make a play on the ball. Yeah. It's screw defensive rookie of the year. The dude should be getting all-pro looks, and I don't use that lightly. You guys know that what I think about all-pro talent here. I'll take a deeper dive into defensive rookie of the year stuff here later today. But no, Chase Young, no. Yeah, he's got some decent numbers, but no. Julian Blackmon for defensive rookie of the year, and he should be getting all-pro type of consideration. You know, the play to seal it against Burrow, you know, that kind of got him on that stage, you know, back in October. But to do that, I don't know. I'll speak for me. I didn't feel good about Aaron Rodgers getting the ball first in overtime. No. I mean, holy shit. I'm like, oh, boy. That defense got to go back out there again. And yeah, I don't know how much of the 50-yarder to Valdez-Scantling was Blackmon's responsibility. Honestly, I just thought that was Aaron Rodgers being like, yep, I will be a first ballot gold jacket guy. And that, I mean, that's just how can you defend that? That's just it's absurd throw and catch there. But Blackmon just making a play, man. Just flat out. Stud, stud, stud. And I can't say enough good things about him. The more I watch tape on him at Utah, I saw the ball instincts, and I was very, very intrigued. But I was just worried about the ACL.
Yeah, right.
Like, that was my biggest worry there. It's like, okay, I see 75th overall, but, man, is it a redshirt year? What about Hooker? Like, in that contract, it was just odd. But obviously, extreme credit to Chris Ballard for believing. And, I think Chris would even be honest with you and be like, yeah, we didn't see this on November 22nd.
Right.
And whatnot. He's still not even a year removed from the ACL. He's got some Darius Leonard in him, man. He does. Just his ability to find the ball like that. Mm-hmm. So he was great. Pittman, getting him in space. I thought that was beautiful design by Frank. He's your number one. He's your number one wideout. He needs to get number one wideout targets. Pittman was big in that first half, making plays after the catch. And I thought that was the best we've seen from Taylor.
Yeah.
I thought that third quarter, man, huge. He created yards that weren't there, and we have not seen that yet from him. I thought he had some runs there in the third quarter, some of his best runs. And to be honest, he's running back 3 at the start of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's Hines to start the game.
Yep.
And it was heavy Hines early, and it was Wilkins to start a series before they went to Taylor. And he struggled in that second quarter. But, man, that third quarter, which was, again, smart by Reich to stick with the run, Taylor showed me more in between the tackle decisiveness and athleticism than we've seen. Some one-cut, straight line, and then when he got in there, he ran through some arm tackles, and I just think he is a little bit more confident. And if you're confident and those athletic traits can then be on display, that's huge for this team moving forward. And Hot Rod bouncing back from the 50-yard chunk, I guess it was. I don't know. I can't recall really any NFL kicker being short from 50 yards like that, especially indoors. That was weird, but just steady. That was an arrow, that field goal in overtime, and clearly the most pressure back kicked he's had in an NFL uniform, man. So I just sat back after the game and thought, these rookies, we always talk about on this podcast, how do you raise the ceiling? How do you find improvement over the course of the season? Oftentimes, your first-year players can give you that. Oftentimes, they hit a wall, too. It can go both ways. If what those guys gave you in that atmosphere can be the norm, January success comes a lot realer.
Yeah, and a mistake on my part. I rattled off 4 rookies that didn't even mention Taylor. That's how.
No, still.
That's how good
right.
our rookies were playing yesterday.
Long list, dude. Seriously. There were multiple guys that you could have thrown in there, and I was starting to rattle it off. I forgot about Harris, having the big touch early on. So, so key to see, and big time from those first-year players.
All right, last thing about things that you like, Frank Reich's first 55 minutes of that ball game.
Yeah, I really like the touchdown designs. How much open turf did Michael Pittman have there?
Right.
He outran the linebacker, but you don't see scripted yards after catch be that wide open like Pittman had. So good job against the zone looks, using him on the crossers. I love the Trey Burton touchdown. 3 tight end personnel, forces Green Bay to put linebackers on the field. Preston Smith weighs 265, and he's in cover. How many times have we seen an Autry in coverage? Or, a Houston occasionally in coverage, and you're like, what the
Right.
Okay, now can you get the other team to do that? And beautiful throw and catch by
right.
Rivers and Burton as well there. And, we didn't joke. I wasn't joking about it. The Brissett and short yardage stuff, it needs to be more the norm, man. And it's how that package has evolved a little bit. Yesterday, it was Rivers literally calling the play in the huddle. Play clock's at what, 20?
Yeah.
Gets to the line, and then Brissett trots in the field. So a Green Bay defense that is not expecting it or not thinking that or sees Rivers and just gets in the flow of the game and thinks, oh, yeah, 17, okay. Now, all of a sudden, they're scrambling a little bit there as well. So that short yardage needs a spark. You're 31st in the league in short yardage coming into yesterday. The only team worse. the Jets. Like, that's not good.
No.
And the Colts weren't even close to being higher than that, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I thought good job there in just kind of the situational stuff and short yardage, which you got to sustain drives like we talked about. And then lastly, I would say what I liked about Reich was sticking with that run in the third quarter. Now, the scoreboard helped you out, only being down 2 scores,
right.
But still, that is Green Bay's biggest weakness, stopping the run. And you felt like, slowly, methodically wear them down. You did that. They stuck with Taylor, and he gave them probably the best quarter we've seen from him. And in my opinion, the best game. I know he probably didn't help fantasy owners that much without 100 yards or a touchdown, but still, I thought it was the best we've seen Taylor as well.
Yeah. And I was very surprised, before we jump into things you didn't like, how poorly J.K. Scott punted the football yesterday.
Dude.
I mean, we got great field position out of all 3 of those punts.
They were all like 39 or 40 or something.
It didn't look, I mean, when he came out of Alabama, he came in booming 60-yarder, like just crazy. It was just really weird.
And it was weird, like he wasn't supposed to play. Like there was some odd thing that happened Friday, Saturday. I was going to look into it more if he didn't make the trip. But, yeah, a field position. You were able to control it. And, I don't think the Colts offensively are like potent enough to me to be like, oh yeah, your offense can carry you to a Super Bowl. But when their special teams continues to show up like they have this season, that can kind of mask a little bit of, maybe just that explosiveness that the offense has. So it's a huge phase, man. Huge phase in the game. And the Colts saw that. I mean, the field goal missed by Hot Rod, that was huge. It's a pseudo turnover, giving Rodgers a semi-short field.
Right.
And, I mean, what Green Bay took the Alley Cox fumble, the Hot Rod missed field goal, and the Rivers pick, 3 touchdowns in the first half. They took advantage of those mistakes.
Right.
Colts did not take advantage of the Green Bay mistakes. Now, you created more of those mistakes, and eventually were able to take advantage.
All right, well, let's jump into things you didn't like. Obviously, we talked about the second half effort, but the reason the second half effort was so important and was part of what you liked is because the first half effort wasn't necessarily there.
Yeah, I didn't love what I saw in the first half. Defensively, I thought really poor job setting the edge. The bootleg action continues to be an issue for this defense. And some of it's like, okay, you always hear this 11 run to the ball. Are you crashing too much? Is it too much of that where teams know now it's such a high-effort defense? Can you use that against them? Can you get some misdirection in there and do some things laterally? And Rodgers is really freaking good at it. That obviously helps as well. So, I thought Green Bay, especially there in the second quarter, even though they did have a short field, I guess the interception was a super short field, they still moved it pretty easily as well. So I just didn't love what we saw in the first half. Offensively, I thought it was more self-inflicted stuff than anything. You had some penalties that just hurt you, and then you had the fumble by Alley Cox, and you had the interception as well on a ball batted down. So it's just these first half trends of like, you're kind of playing with fire of like, man, you really need the forced fumble on the kick return to come back. You really need Tennessee to have a blocked punt to really feel good about the game. Like, yes, you are making those plays, but still that's a bit playing with fire of, this team isn't built to routinely come back. They've done it, but I don't think it's a trend that you want to keep on going down.
Yeah.
And so that was just a little bit disappointing to see. 10-day break at home, such a big game. I expected them to come out of the gate a little bit better.
I would agree with that. And then the game management. That was another one of your dislikes.
Yeah, an absolute abomination, Chris. I don't say it lightly. It's one of the worst game management finishing of games I've ever seen. And I thought Frank Reich was about as candid as you will hear him after the game talking about it's elementary 101. And, we pretty much failed in that area. I've gone back and watched the holding penalties. I just talked to Big Joe, former NFL offensive lineman. I didn't see one that was that big of an issue. I mean, literally. And, would you like to see maybe a little bit more consistency with that over 60 minutes? Sure. Is some of that you're playing 84 snaps and your offensive line guys are kind of straining a little bit late in the game? Yeah, but I think it gets back to the root of this hasn't been a great run blocking team this season. And when you get put in that situation, refs are going to look for it. And honestly, so many of the holdings were like right there in the thick of the play. These weren't like backside holding penalties.
Right.
A lot of them were like right at the hole or right there. You just, and Frank, I thought, pointed this out really well. You can't do that in that situation because it stops the clock. Because if you notice, Matt LaFleur did the Mike Vrabel 12 men on the field thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was a design thing to do to stop the clock. Now you're helping them with all these penalties. Like, you will take a 3-yard loss than a holding penalty to try and get you survive another down.
Right.
No. Like, that stops the clock there. So I really didn't have that big of an issue with those penalties. Hell, when LaRaven Clark's holding on the first play of the game, I'm like, okay, here we go. This is going to be the norm. And Quentin Nelson, 3 holding penalties in the day.
Yep.
Quentin Nelson should not be an All-Pro this season. People will probably unsubscribe to the podcast for saying that, but he has not played at that level this year. I thought what was also maddening about the close of the game, non-penalty division, were the pass plays called leading to incompletions.
Right.
I'm okay with calling pass plays there. I'm fine with it. 17-year vet, I get it. They have got to be the most high percentage pass plays you have in your playbook. Screen, dump, something in the flat, have a safety valve to where that clock is not going to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And, if that Sanchez punt topples into the end zone, and now Aaron Rodgers is only going 80, we're probably talking about a Colts loss here.
Right.
To be frank. And so it's just, that was like 2020 is here, alive. I was like, what? They don't have alcohol in the press box. I don't know why this is not good for anyone's sanity to be watching it unfold like that. And, if Zadarius Smith is a split second to Rivers earlier than that, how do you let a pass play happen to where your tackles are exposed that much in that situation? Like, there should not be that long of a drop happening on a play and with less than 3 minutes to go when you're calling a pass. So, man, that was and that's squarely, it starts with Reich. Yes, the player is executing the holding penalties. They deserve proper blame, but still, from a coaching standpoint, there were multiple areas that were an issue. And I know this team hasn't played in a lot of fourth quarters, pressure-packed, final 5 minutes sort of things. But, boy, it got so bad you got out of field goal range.
Right.
Got to the point. And I was good with them going for the 4th down. The Hines, my mind was triggered back to 2009, Belichick. I don't want to give the ball back to Manning. I'm going to go for it on 4th and 2.
Yeah.
Because I respect the quarterback on the other sideline that much. To me, that was more of a Reich respects Rodgers that much. I don't want to give him the ball back unless I really have to. And whatever, he finally got into a down and distance that he had to. And a great execution, Burton and Hines on the rub route there. So, yeah, that was about as horrific of clock management as you will see from an NFL team.
There were so many times late where I'm like, okay, I think we won. All right, okay, that first down definitely should do it. Oh no. Oh no, we're giving the ball back to Aaron Rodgers. They're going to go down and score here. So props to the defense for not allowing that to happen. But it was, you talk about roller coaster and heart attack. My goodness.
And I will say, I'm glad you brought up the defense on that final drive there, because you give up the bomb on the 3rd and 10, and then Adams gets going again. And then I thought Rodgers wasn't great with the clock management, but you got to that 3rd and goal situation, and you got Kenny Moore on Devontae Adams in the slot. That was almost something to where, boy, if I'm Green Bay in that situation, I'm going 3-by-1, and I'm leaving Adams, even if I guess they would have doubled Rock over the top, but still, I'd almost rather trust. Kenny did a great job there, I think, of knowing situation, no timeouts, this ball's coming to the end zone. If I can get in between Rodgers and Adams and just make sure they've got to make some heroic play in the corner of the end zone, because, that was a nervy moment. That reached the 8-yard line. Gosh, man, it got even closer than I thought.
Yeah, and it
wild,
was,
man.
And you look for, and especially the way the game had been going, I'm looking for a flag. Like,
Right.
Where's this fan? Where's this pass
yeah.
interference at so they can get another opportunity? But good job by Kenny, like you said.
Yeah, big time there.
Okay, those was things you liked and did not like. Shall we jump into Twitter questions?
Yes. Yep. Let's do it.
Again, one of our favorite segments on each show as we listen to both YouTube and the Twitter questions, so hit us up on both of those. First one's coming from Tanner. Hey, Kev, great effing win. Let's go. Can't be mad, but my question for the pod is, how is Pittman not going to be involved in the second half? Did the defense just focus on him? And if the D focused on him, then where was T.Y.?
Yeah, you gotta love a good cussing Twitter question to start things off. Yeah, no targets for Pittman in the second half. That's something that certainly needs to change. I think the next step for him, Chris, is just a little bit more involved in the red zone. Use that body type, the frame. We've talked about it, the 50-50, the jump ball nature. Use that inside the 20 there. And just kind of him purely winning one-on-one. I still think that is a next step for him, just consistently winning against press, against man. Because the Packers do have, Jair Alexander is a really good corner.
Yes.
And Kevin King is a pretty good corner as well. Outside of Hilton did have, that was the second half. Hilton had that big red zone, great ball by Rivers, corner route, kind of the patented Hilton one, dropped it in a bucket there. So, the passing off, you primarily ran it in the second half, so I won't fault things too much there. I thought Rivers was pretty good. I know he had the pick and batted balls. There's always the debate of who is it on. I tend to think it's more on the quarterback, but still, I thought Rivers was he's been better than what you had last year, flat out. And that is an improvement at quarterback, especially in these games, these atmospheres, these moments. And he's giving you a chance.
Yeah. And to that point, when I was at the game, I looked at my buddy and I said, I'm not comparing Rivers to Luck. I'm not going there. But there were a lot of times where Andrew Luck wouldn't have taken necessarily a sack or thrown the ball to a position where only our receiver could get it. Now, he was very good at that, but there are some times where Phillip Rivers, even though it's like, dang it, come on, man. It's better than the turnover. And so I'm fine with balls where only your receivers can catch it that might go way deep out of the back of the end zone and sacks that you can come back from.
Rivers believes in the check down more than Andrew did early in his career. Part of that's the offense that Andrew was in as well. But yeah.
All right, Kevin. Jason wants to know, based on what you saw on the field, scoring plays disregarded, do you think the Colts played well enough to beat the Packers?
Certainly in the second half. You won the turnover battle 4-2. That's massive. Mm-hmm. Massive. It's a huge reason why you won the game. Both teams had some awful mistakes, let's be honest here. Rodgers getting out of that snap early with Corey Linsley. That's something you definitely don't expect. And, a couple fumbles. The Colts obviously had the fumble with Allie Cox. The 50-yard field goal, you'd call that kind of a borderline turnover as well. So, the first half was bad. And it was, this was a very competitive game. Coin flip type game, throughout certainly a large chunk of the second half. And, halftime, you would have signed up for a game going into overtime. Certainly down 14 points. But
yep.
You aren't going to play a team, Chris, that will challenge you through the air like that the rest of the season. Good thing Aaron Rodgers is in the NFC. You don't have to sweat out that playoff matchup. Mm-hmm. That's something to where, Kansas City, yes. But Pittsburgh, I still like their wideout talent enough that would worry me. But it just seems like the Colts are better equipped to face some of the AFC teams than they are the NFC teams, mm-hmm. which I know they went undefeated against the NFC North, but there are some teams in the NFC South and NFC West that I don't think are great matchups for them. But, credit the Colts. Adjustments. We talk about it all the time. Halftime adjustments. Making plays in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And those are strides this team is making that they did not make last season. And it was a very close game. Really close. It could have gone either way, and that's the beauty of it. But the Colts made critical plays, man.
This one's from Scotty. Can you put that in the top 10 or 20 Colts victories that you've witnessed?
Oh, easily. Yeah, top 10. Oh, yeah. Top 10 or 20. Yeah, I've covered every Colts game for the past decade and certainly watched a lot of Colts games growing up. As far as the games I've covered, boy, you're talking regular season home games, Chris. I always put Denver up there. Peyton's first game back.
Mm-hmm.
I put up 2012 Green Bay game, just all the sentimental value with that, not to mention Reggie Wayne with one of the greatest individual performances I've ever seen. I put Denver in 2015, Peyton's second time coming back when they were undefeated. I always liked the Seattle game in 2013, Russell Wilson against Luck.
Yep.
Colts had a blocked field goal, Delano Howell in that game. That was great. T.Y. torched Richard Sherman in that game. So, yeah, I'd again when Jim Irsay's hopping on the Zoom after the game and calls it one of the greatest home wins in franchise history, I believe him. You know, and I agree with that. Yeah.
All right, this one comes from our buddy over in Ireland, Darg. If the playoffs start tomorrow,
Let me say one more thing on that, Chris. Sorry to interrupt there on Scotty. It wasn't so much that this was an upset. Like, I think the entire ESPN crew picked the Colts. Like, the Colts were favored. Like, it wasn't the upset nature. It is the unique challenge that Rodgers possesses and just the wild, entertaining back and forth, overtime, forced fumble, all of that. I think that's what plays into it for me.
Cool. Back to the question, if the playoffs start tomorrow, who would be the Colts starting running back?
Yeah, boy, good luck predicting that. Don't do daily fantasy with the Colts running back. Flavor of the month, man. It's just, I think it's a double-digit touch, Hines, Taylor sort of game. You know, in between the tackle run focus, it's going to be more Taylor. You know, we saw Hines as a running back, certainly not have the same production that he had last Thursday, but he still is a weapon in the pass game. And that's primarily where his use needs to be. So, by committee, 1A, 1B, a die in Rhodes in the Super Bowl, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
It's what the Colts got.
Yeah, they remind me, to the fantasy point, they kind of remind me of the Patriots of old. I mean,
yes.
You just never know which running back's going to be the guy.
It's a great point, yeah. I mean, even the Patriots now, it's like Damian Harris, James White, Rex Burkhead, and
Sonny Michel.
We'll see what happens when Sonny Michel gets back. Yeah, it is maddening to predict for fantasy owners.
All right, Kevin, this one's from Conroy. On the last drive of the fourth quarter, the one with all the flags. At what point do you just kneel the damn ball and run the clock out? Seemed like every run of 2 or more yards was called back due to a quote-unquote hold.
Dude, Conroy, just preach. It was, I heard Rick Venturi was blowing a gasket. I wasn't able to listen to it, but I would love to hear that. It was, when I'm in the moment, the emotional aspect of covering a game, I'm pretty numb to it. But even then, I'm laughing, crying, everything. Like, it's like, what the is going on? Like, I'm like, and so I'm just picturing that being Notre Dame, and then putting myself in our listeners' shoes and just being like, oh my gosh. Yeah, pray for Maddie and Rosie. Conroy, the throws were just as maddening. I mean, the throwing decisions were just as because you have more control over that. That's a less judgment call. It's like, wait, you're choosing to throw the ball down the field like that and not getting these high percent. I hope after Wednesday we never have to speak of it again.
Right. Ross wants to know if this was the game of the year for the Colts.
Yeah, to me. And Ross, is this Ross, my brother-in-law, who was just in Vegas? Ross is supposed to get married, my brother-in-law, this past weekend. So him and his wife, Vegas.
Love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, man. It sounds like he had a productive weekend gambling as well. So shout out to Ross Mackenzie Weiser, his lovely fiance. All right. Game of the year. Like we said, Titans game means more for standings. But this is January. This is the measuring stick.
Mm-hmm.
Huge. But boy, Sunday's big.
I know.
Boy, this Sunday. And the Titans are beat up. They lost Jayon Brown, one of their best defensive players on Sunday. Clowney's on IR since last Thursday. Who else? Kenny Vaccaro, concussion. The left tackle, Sombrero, or however you say his name, who's in for Lawan, got hurt. The Colts, I guess we'll watch about Rivers. I don't know. Turf toe's kind of weird, assuming it's turf toe. But Anthony Walker, maybe? I don't remember really any injuries for the Colts in that game.
No. And the turf toe was the one that kind of shocked me because late in that game, Rivers went down.
Dude, I thought he cracked his ribs.
Yeah, it was like, oh, no.
Are you talking about the hit?
Yes.
Yeah. People in the press box are like, oh, no, he suffered the injury on the block. I'm like, really? I thought I don't know. Maybe he suffered the toe injury on the block, but he got smoked.
Yes, he did.
3 or 4 plays before that. And he was like, and that's the benefit of being at the game. I don't know how much they showed this on Fox, but like he is bending down, kind of in like a catcher stance, like a baseball catcher stance in between plays. Like play would end, he gets in the catcher stance for 15 seconds, then he gets up and slowly moves the huddle. He did that like 5 straight plays. And he came over the sideline, and it was long timeouts when Jacoby was in the game. And yeah, I'm gonna be watching Philip Rivers a little bit this week.
Yeah, he was on all fours crawling towards where the play was, which was way downfield. I'm like, I don't know if he's gonna get there in time for this next play.
Exactly, and that wasn't a reference to him crawling like he's trying to scramble. I mean, that was literally a reference to him in pain. And right. I shouldn't joke. Rivers made a couple plays with his legs that were, another 2020 moment.
This one is from Big Bama. Is there any question now whether to pay Braden Smith after the revolving door yesterday at right tackle? There were some that questioned paying him or not. I just think he's underrated on how important he is to this team and the future of this team going forward with the offensive line not being as deep.
Big Bama, I think he might be the most underrated player on this football team. And I think Grover Stewart's starting to get the deserved attention. We don't give enough to Braden Smith. Chris, I don't know what the hell that was, the revolving door, right? It's like, I tweeted it out. I'm like, are they playing the less cold hand? I don't think you're playing the hot hand at right tackle. I think you're playing and someone responded like, oh no, I think they're playing the lukewarm hand. I mean, Raven Clark starts, bench 2 series in the game. Chaz Green goes in. Then Chaz Green gets benched. And then Raven Clark goes back in the game. And then Chaz Green plays the whole second half. I'm like, it's, Ballard, such a great offseason. Such a great offseason, but that is by far his biggest mistake, is not addressing offensive tackle depth in a more serious manner. Mm-hmm. Think about it, man. You have had incredible offensive line health again this season. Look at Dallas. Yeah. Dallas is on what? Their 8th different combination. Zach Martin, an all-pro guard's going to play tackle. Like, you don't see NFL teams do that. But they're in such a dire situation. Look at Green Bay during the game yesterday. Lindsley, their center, leaves the game. Mm-hmm. Bakhtiari had missed, several games earlier in the year. The Colts have had Costanzo out for 1 game and Braden Smith out for 1 game. Like, it's been beautiful O-line health. And in those 2 games against a Green Bay front that is not Myles Garrett and company,
right?
You see why, if you can sneak in a Thanksgiving prayer on Thursday to pray for the O-line health for the Colts, try and get it in, folks, because it's huge, man. It's yeah. And to get back to the question, Bama, one of my colleagues and who I really, really respect, him and I and a couple others were talking at practice the other day, and he was making the argument that maybe you don't pay Braden Smith. Like, it's one of those positions that you got too much money invested other places, you can't pay Braden Smith. And I'm just like, I could not disagree more with that statement. I mean, I'm sorry. Right tackle means a whole lot.
Yeah.
Whole lot. So you pay him. And I know it's going to get weird, but if Chris Ballard is a man of his word, which I think he is, I think Braden Smith could be getting an extension. Like, he's shown you everything that you could have hoped for there. So pay him.
Yep. All right, Cameron wants to know when Eberflus decided to turn halftime adjustments from a weakness to a strength. Says we never used to be good at adjusting in the game, and now at half we've been dominated in the second half, especially with defense. P.S. How insane is it that Leonard lines up 1v1 on Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I remember Leonard having a huge pass deflection against DeAndre Hopkins, maybe his rookie season. It was just like, whoa, this kid has arrived. You hear her say after the game, talk about the talk he had with Frank Reich and company after week 1 in Jacksonville?
I did not.
Oh, boy. I think we said on the podcast that the owner was extremely pissed by that week 1 performance for multiple reasons. Minshew 19-20. You're losing another season opener for a 7th straight season. You're losing a divisional game as well to a team that they haven't won since, right?
No.
Yeah. Boy, I'd love to be a little fly on the wall in here, fired up. I was disappointed we had a press box video from him, or a suite video from him. I want the weightlifting videos. Can we get him back? Like, think about that. That weightlifting video was after week 1.
Yep.
I mean, yeah. But seriously, Eberflus, job well done. We've called him out here, and I think deservedly called him out at times. But this defense, while I don't like what the first half has looked like the last couple of weeks, the second half adjustments are key. It's a 60-minute ball game. And if the defense, if they don't give you those 3 and outs, you're a 6-4 football team right now.
Yeah.
Defense started it. Complimentary football came from there.
What a ride, baby. Hope everyone's heart is healthy. We saw from Green Bay, at least, is similar to when we played Cleveland with the bootlegs, play actions, etc. And it just seems to crave this defense. Thoughts? That's from Bailey.
Man, what a game. What a heart. I mean, oh boy, I don't know about you, man. A lot of Packers fans in there, though, yesterday.
A lot of Packer fans.
Yeah. Secondary market, I think, taking full advantage of Green Bay not having any home games, and this one being within driving distance. Don't you love NFL fandom, though? Like, so this is what I don't get on a weekly basis with Notre Dame. Sure, there are a lot of great games, and I'm expecting North Carolina to be an absolute battle for the Irish on Friday, down to offensive linemen, by the way. But you got blowouts in college football. You got a good amount of blowouts. Alabama to Kentucky was what?
63-3.
I mean, yeah, jeez. But like the NFL, man, you get this like every week. I mean, think about if you sat on your butt yesterday from 1 o'clock to midnight in the Indy market and watched the games. You got Baltimore, Tennessee in just a unbelievable effort by A.J. Brown to get in the end zone.
Yeah.
Then you're getting Colts, Packers, and then you're getting Chiefs, Raiders. I love this. How does anyone not love the NFL? Like, it is just pure entertainment on a week in, week out basis. And I know I'm incredibly biased and whatnot, but dude, the parity in this league in 16-game season helps it out and all that, but gosh, Bailey, rest the heart. I don't know what people do to. I don't know. Drink. I tweeted it. Go get another drink. Make it stiffer. Sunday. Hey, it's a short week for everybody, folks. Just be glad the Colts don't play on Thursday this week.
I know.
The heart needs a week-long rest because Sunday,
it's gonna be fun.
Huge. Insert Donald Trump. Huge voice. Right there.
From Romulus. Does Blackmon have a shot at Defensive Rookie of the Year or even Defensive Player of the Year, or is being on the Colts going to hurt his chances?
Boy, Defensive Player of the Year, man. I mean, I've already spoken about Defensive Rookie of the Year. Help me out here, Chris. I mean, you got to think Aaron Donald, right, for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know. We'll see what he'll do on Monday night. Garrett has been up there. I know he didn't play on Sunday. Defensive Player of the Year, again, it probably won't go to that extent, but, dude. Being on the Colts hurts a little bit. Sometimes you get into the whole Heisman national attention type thing. And like yesterday, the Colts got slotted in the 425 window. Everyone's predicting them to win. You're talking about Taysom Hill. You're talking about the Titans and Vrabel and Harbaugh going at it, and you're talking about Mahomes and the comeback, which is fine. I'm good with it, folks. Slide under the radar. We'll see. Maybe Colts Steelers get flexed week 16. I don't know how that would work out, but Blackmon, if I'm making a 5-ish person list for Defensive Player of the Year, I probably am finding room for him. Yeah,
because the attribute that he has, like the Garrett, the T.J. Watt, the Aaron Donald.
Forgot about T.J. Watt, yeah.
And even the Maniac, there are players that every time you look up are always around the ball.
Yeah.
Blackmon on every level of the defense seems to just make plays.
Highlight. Game changers.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sergio and Ryan have similar questions and comments for this week's podcast. As a former offensive lineman, I was always told if you aren't holding, you aren't blocking, and feel that is mostly true. Do you think all the holding calls were warranted against the Colts? Also, does it feel like we just never get a good officiating crew on our side?
Yeah, I think our listeners of the podcast know this. I probably haven't talked too much about it. I'm not a huge believer in complaining about calls, and I'm really a believer in over the course of 60 minutes, you got good calls and bad calls. I don't think we saw a Tyquan Lewis face mask penalty question in our Twitter question. A blatant face mask here. So I'm really not a big person that just blames calls. Now, yes, do calls decide some games? They certainly can. Obviously, I don't need to remind Purdue fans what happened on Friday. I watched those holding penalties, and again, I talked to Jeff Saturday, talked with Joe Stasiak this morning. I mean, both of them as former offensive linemen, former Colt offensive linemen, they did not seem to be too fed up, really, with any of the calls. Like, Stasiak was like, every call was literally a hold. And Saturday was like, pretty much. I mean, it looked like a lot of holds to me. And I never really saw the Colts complaining either. It was kind of just like, holy shit, is this really happening? But, holding is such a weird thing, man. It's so judgment. I think typically NFL officials are really good. You know what honestly frustrates me the most about NFL officiating, Chris? And this is just me nitpicking. I think they do a horrific job at spotting footballs.
Yes.
2 plays coming to mind from yesterday. Brissett on the QB sneak should have been at least 3 or 4 yards further down the field. And then on the punt that the Colts downed at the 6 at the end of the game, that should have been at the 8 or the 9. Like, and I know those don't seem like big in the grand scheme of things, but the Green Bay got to the 8-yard line at the end. Like, those are just little things like that. And, too many times I feel like they stop them short of the chains on like a 2nd and 8, and they're like, oh, no, move the chains, first down. I'm like, it's clearly a half-yard short.
Right.
Like, those could be huge plays. You false start on 3rd and a half yard, and holy. So,
you don't see measurements as much anymore.
No. And
they
I'm
just
like,
come running in, and they're like, go. Yep.
Right. And we don't need to bring the chains out every time, but it's just kind of like, that's a half yard. Just, you don't need to bring out the chains, and let's go. But, yeah, sir, I'm not. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't love wasting my time calling. If it is a truly difference, game changer, huge moment, yes, we'll address it. But I'm not whining about calls.
Rodney and Raj also have similar comments and questions. It was clearly the best running game of the year for Jonathan Taylor. He just looked different. He made a few cuts that looked like his vision had been adjusted. What is it? Is this just development, better blocking, or something else? By the way, happy Thanksgiving to you, Chris, and your families.
Thank you for that, and same to all of our listeners out there.
Absolutely.
I know how much family means at this time of the year. So hopefully, if you're able to, get with your loved ones or do it virtually here in 2020. And we will be back with a podcast on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk then about Thanksgiving. But Chris, I don't think the O-line was just that. Oh my gosh, they're blocking great today. Like, there were a couple Taylor runs where I'm like, there's nothing there. Boom. All of a sudden, there he is.
Mm-hmm.
Making a cut, decisive, getting in a hole. And then, like I was saying earlier, I felt like I saw, and this is going to sound confusing, so hopefully it doesn't sound as confusing as I think it's about to be in my head. We've seen Taylor's athleticism in the open field.
Yes.
I haven't seen it as much in between the tackles. Now, obviously, it's easier to see a player's athleticism in the open field. Yesterday, I saw more of his physical attributes in between the tackles than I had previously. He's got a little bit of burst to get to that second level in between the tackles. He can run through some arm tackles at 230 pounds.
Right.
I saw more of that. And honestly, I think it comes from just being decisive and being confident. And if you're one cut and go, naturally you trust your body. And then your God-given talent, which he has, takes over. So, boy, it goes back to what I said earlier, man. If Jonathan Taylor can become a bell cow for this football team and the run game starts to make strides, clear some of the weekends in January. Clear multiple weekends in January. Like, this team can do something.
Yeah.
Now, it's looking like you're going to have to go on the road. I mean, hell, probably every game, right? Besides a wild card game. Like, I don't think you're getting to the 2 seed or something like that. But, yeah, we are, that was big for Taylor yesterday. That was big.
When you're that big, once that train gets going, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, amen. Amen. That sounded like Chris Berman right there. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, this is from Travis.
And he's a rumbling and a stumbling.
He says, I've been thinking about this game since it ended. Emotions still strong. I want your thoughts on how Eberflus and Reich managed to completely take Rodgers off the field in the second half. Absolutely amazed, and they did it, and absolutely amazed. And did the refs really want Aaron Rodgers to win that bad?
Oh, gosh. Travis, this is a great point. Great point. complementary football.
Yes.
It takes every facet to stymie these quarterbacks. We talked about it last Wednesday, the Chiefs blueprint. 45 rushing attempts, had the ball for over 15 minutes, and you hit Mahomes 8 times in that game. Side note, Kamoko Terry, 10 snaps, didn't record a stat. I saw a little, He had the one kind of high rush that, maybe a half pressure if you really want to get nitpicky with it. But, yeah, I thought he'd play a little bit more, but, whatever. It's early. So, 3 and outs, sustaining drives. I mean, look at that third quarter recipe, Chris. You had the ball for 11:22 in that third quarter. There were 4 drives in the third quarter. Green Bay, 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. Colts respond. 14 plays, 56 yards, field goal. Green Bay gets the ball back. 3 plays, 9 yards, punt. Colts get the ball back. 10 plays, 55 yards, touchdown.
Yeah.
You can't script a better quarter against Aaron Rodgers outside of settling for 1 field goal if we're really going to nitpick.
Yeah. All right, Brooke says, hey, Kev, love the pod. Question is, how well as Phillip Rivers has played recently with the Colts, how much does this excite you for what Reich will be able to do once he gets his hands on his future franchise quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I identifying that quarterback, finding it, that's difficult. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of what we've mentioned before. This team is built much better around the quarterback than they were at this point of the Ryan Grigson era.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what gives you some hope. Now, that's the tough piece. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about that. But, yeah, certainly. What you have around QB right now is pretty good.
Craig wants to talk some good and the bad, the good being the near great season Julian Blackmon is having as he closed out 3 games this year for the defense, Packers, Bengals, and Bears. Is he a potential defensive rookie of the year? The bad being the constant bad calls by the officials week after week. Are there really that many holding calls? Did T.Y. not get interfered with in the end zone? And can we start fining officials for poor calls?
Yeah, Craig, we've covered a lot about this. The T.Y. play, that was it. Was it Amos in coverage there? He definitely didn't turn around. I don't know. T.Y. didn't complain too much. But, again, there's no face guard in the NFL. Like, that's not college. College, that's an automatic penalty. But in the NFL, you can face guard. So, I can't believe I can continue to waste my time talking about officiating questions. Let's move on.
Corey wants to know about that 50-yarder yesterday from Hot Rod. Did he short-leg it, or is 50-plus just too far for him?
It's not too far for him, Chris. I've seen him kick 55-yarders, and I think he did in college, too. I should probably look up his college stats. But, yeah, he doesn't have a booming leg, but it's not like Harrison Butker or, like, Prater or anything like that. But, like, he's capable. I did not literally think, like, look at the 50-yarder. I mean, it's a beautiful-looking kick. It just, did he chunk it? I don't.
It was weird. It looked like, from where I was sitting, it looked like it was deflected watching the replay. It definitely wasn't. It just had a ton of rotation on it. Once it got close to the goalpost, it was just spinning a ton. Yeah,
I mean, it was weird. But, and that's, I guess, my only kind of looming question now moving forward. I mean, he's been so solid in many ways as a kicker, but you're going to play more close games.
Yeah.
How do you handle those?
All right, this one's from Chris. Great win yesterday after having 8 heart attacks, but the question is, will Frank give Taylor more carries after the game against the Packers because he seems to be gaining some more confidence?
Well, Chris, he had 22 carries. I mean, that's quite a lot. I still want Hines sprinkled in, but and Wilkins, I think, had a couple nice carries. I know he didn't play a whole lot, but yeah, I mean, I think JT deserves, right around kind of teen carries and just kind of see how the game flow's going and see what you have there. But 22 carries is a great amount.
Right. Stan, a big listener to the show, says, similar to Allen Robinson, do you think Kenny Golladay is on the Colts' 2021 free agent radar if he doesn't get re-signed? I know the Colts aren't quite as resource-rich in years past, but they still have a pretty penny, and like Allen Robinson, Golladay is young and drama-free.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Stan. I guess, what do you want body type? Do you have Pittman and you're like, okay, I've got that body, maybe I don't need the Golladay body type. Campbell, obviously, the health question. It just, Chris is going to sound so stupid. Just give me a stud. Just like A.J. Brown is not 6'4" and 220, but hell, he plays like he is.
Yeah.
Just find me a quality wideout, and you got to hit. You just got to hit. I would think Galladay, Juju, Allen Robinson, they all could. I don't think you need like one specific body type to complement what you have right now.
All right, a couple more here. Jason wants to know about Grover Stewart and getting paid. He says, is there any concern in signing a guy who hasn't really done anything until his contract year? He thinks back to Eric Walden, who had the same type of, a really good year in his contract year, but then when the Colts let him walk and he didn't really do anything after that. And also, is Grover Stewart only doing so good because Buckner is demanding a lot of attention off of Stewart?
Yeah, Jason, fair question, but I would disagree. Think back to last year, Chris. Al Woods, a cheap free agent, quote unquote, was your starter at that position. Run defense struggles the first few games of the season. They bench Woods for Stewart. What happens? The run defense gets a lot better. Stewart is a 4th-round pick for a reason. This guy, he disengages from one-on-one block. He doesn't just clog up space. He makes tackles. You do not see the nose tackle in defense make as many stops, solo tackles, like he makes. So I get it. Nose tackle, linebacker, left guard, you are paying a lot. But, man, at 27 years old, dude, Eric Walden was, 31, 32 on that deal? Interior defensive linemen can still be in their prime, late 20s, early 30s. I give him a 3 or 4 year deal and don't think twice about it. You don't have any other body type on this team, and he stands for so much. He stands for a lot of what they believe in as well.
Yeah.
Fair question, Jason, but I strongly disagree with it.
Noah says the Colts traditionally struggle in both playing in Jacksonville and playing in Week 1. His question is, what is more likely for the Colts to win at?
Boy, gosh, you'd hope at Week 1, I guess. That'll happen first in the schedule. I don't know. Is the Week 1 camp stuff? Is it how you prepare for the start of the season? Is it? It's multiple regimes, and I still don't know how they lost to Jacksonville.
A lot of people don't.
Minshew's not even playing anymore.
Yeah. Kenny says the Colts offensive line has been overrated since 2018 when Googe was the coach. He wasn't Reich's guy, and he was fired before the 2019 season. Could he be the missing part?
Yeah, this is a question we get a good amount, Chris. They've changed up some schemes. I do think the tenacity, the everyday kind of – Googe's a hard ass. Now look at Googe's resume. I don't know if he's had a job for multiple years. I think he's an acquired taste, and Frank Reich and him don't see eye to eye personality-wise, and that's me talking. But, yeah, there is a difference in this O-line. It's I don't know. Is it that everyday, serious, again, hard-ass accountability that's not being held to? Chris Strasser strikes me as a much more reserved individual than Googe. But, you would think the talent's there. 4 top 40 picks, right? So, yeah, I don't know if it's complacency or what. But, I probably think it's a little bit more position coach-based than probably some of my colleagues do.
Back to that Jacksonville game, Matt's going to turn that loss, which he was extremely upset about and complained about all season, into a positive. He's saying, you know what? The Colts are preventing the Jaguars from getting Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, okay, fair. The Jets look like they're going to be in that camp. Boy, whose draft stock looked a little shaky on Sunday or Saturday.
Yeah, Fields.
Man, that decision-making was... And I'm a big Fields guy. Now, his ability to shed some guys and make some plays with his legs was pretty darn impressive there. But, his decision-making was a little head-scratching for sure.
This one comes from the YouTube comments section. CS, who is a fan from North Carolina, feels like your podcast is one of the best Colts one out there.
Thank you, CS. Appreciate it.
He asked if he had one go-to game for this year, should he go to, or if he had one game, to go to Lucas Oil, should he wait until next year without COVID or book a ticket around the holidays if he has free time?
Boy, Colts Steelers would be pretty enticing on Sunday Night Football. I have a feeling the secondary market, especially if Pittsburgh's undefeated, there'll be a lot of black and yellow in that building. I think you wait, man. I just, I'm a big believer in atmosphere means a lot. And no, I'm sorry to break Colts fans' hearts, but Lucas Oil is not a very hostile environment compared to other NFL venues. But still, I love a full building and everyone singing Mellencamp and whatnot. Home slate next year, I think it's NFC West.
Okay.
So that would be Rams and Seahawks. I like that.
Good ones there, yep.
I believe you have the Patriots at home next year. I don't know if that, gets the same juices flowing, but Belichick is Belichick.
Right.
So I'd wait. CS. I mean, hell, playoff game, maybe?
Playoff game, that's true. All right, an interesting one here from Jason. What do you think about an international week? All 32 teams play internationally with 2 games on each night. Teams that play early in the week get a bye the week before. The late teams get a bye the next week. You build an international NFL brand, and it eliminates giving up home games for some teams. Plus, it's a week of football. Even if we do 1 game per night, that still warrants a decent Sunday slate.
Boy, I don't know if I'm totally following along here with this one. So he wants all games 1 week to be international?
Sounds like it, yep.
See, I think it's better to do, if you're really trying to grow the game globally, I think it's better to do 1 game internationally each week. You're always, from September to December, you're always in some different international market. I've always said this, and I'm a fan of playing 1 game internationally. I'm a fan of playing 1 home game internationally every 4 years.
Okay.
So basically how I would do it is you have 8 international games in the year. So that means every team plays internationally every 2 years. Every team gives up a home game every 4th year to play internationally. And when I'm talking, I'm talking Mexico and Europe. The whole China stuff. Like what? You can't do that. Like there's no way physically you can do that and come back and play either the previous week or the next week.
Uh-huh.
Just no. But yeah, I'm all about growing the brand. And we have so many listeners I know in Europe, so they deserve it. One of the coolest experiences I've ever done, probably the coolest, honestly, was going over to Wembley for the game in 2016. I mean, just see the fandom there. Have I ever told you the Bjorn Werner story?
I don't believe so.
All right, so Regent Street is a big street in London.
Okay.
Fan Fest event on Friday. Colts are there, Luck. I don't even know who was on the team at that time. Mathis, who knows? Hilton, McAfee, I think was one of them. So, they're going through this throng of fans to walk up to the stage. And I mean, this street is packed. Like, I'm like Georgia Street Super Bowl packed.
Nice.
And all of a sudden, and I'm behind the Colts players a little bit. You see the Colts players, like, go into the crowd to, like, hug some. I'm like, that doesn't look good. I don't think they want to be interacting with the fans that closely. Bjorn Werner is in the crowd. Your first-round pick from 2013. In 2016, he's a fan.
Yeah.
Probably not what Ryan Grigson wanted to see at that moment for many reasons. But, man, were they happy. Those Colts players were happy to see Bjorn. And he was doing some NFL Europe corresponding and whatnot. But that was awesome, man. I feel bad. Obviously, 2020 is crazy, but I selfishly like the international games.
All right, last question for this episode from Latrell. How much are the Irsay daughters involved with the big decisions, and which one is most likely to take over when Jim steps down?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Carly Irsay, the oldest, Irsay Gordon, is the oldest daughter. I think she's involved in pretty much every daily decision on some level. Certainly Pete Ward, the COO, runs a whole lot of that show over there, but she's involved a whole lot. Now, when you get into the big time stuff, Jim is signing off, but the business operations aspect on a day-to-day basis, she's heavily involved. The middle daughter, I don't believe, is involved that much, really. Casey Irsay Foyt, married to A.J. Foyt's grandson. And then Kaylin Irsay Jackson is her last name. She is also involved a good amount, more so than Casey. But I know she's got a couple young kids, so I don't know if she's been involved as much as well. I have no idea how I would handle it, but Kaylin seems pretty sharp. I would probably lean on that if I were Jimmy. But yeah, I think that's kind of how the 3 daughters divvied up. I mean, they all go to owners' meetings and whatnot.
Yeah.
So and I think they all have such a great grasp of knowing they grew up here. which is huge. You know, Jim obviously didn't grow up here. They know what Indy means to their family, to this team, to this community. The Colts mean to this, all of that. I'm pretty sure. I know Kalen went to IU. I think Casey might have as well. So that obviously helps as well.
Cool. Well, that wraps up Twitter questions for this episode.
Love it. And like I said, man, we got a lot to get to on Wednesday. So Wednesday's pod will be primarily that. A little bit of Titan stuff that we'll get into. What has changed in 17 days. It's kind of crazy to think they're going to play that short of time. Okay, Julian Blackmon story up on the site tomorrow. Looked at the rookies as well, hits and misses pieces. The Jacoby Brissett short yard stuff, I don't joke around. That's been a spark for this team, so that's up on the site as well. He's Chris Presley. I'm Kevin Bowen. For those that can't listen to Wednesday's podcast, happy Thanksgiving. Be safe, enjoy time with the family, and cherish those moments. And we'll be back Wednesday with a Titans preview pod.